Thank you, Wolfgang. I'm so excited to be here today, and thank you for the intro. So we all know that tech entrepreneurship is one of the great levers to implement change and which could transform the economic systems to be suitable, just, and sustainable in good times and in crisis times, which we all live these days. And innovation for a sustainable and just future needs to be supported for a new sustainable humanity, to support people, to support the society, to solve ecological challenges. And we will get to learn today entrepreneurs who are with their solutions tackling societal and environmental challenges that are playing a role globally, and developed business models which are sustainable solutions which can be implemented and scaled up with the perspective to be profitable and have a positive impact. Today is a very special day because we are launching today the BMW Foundation's report on tech innovations changing the world. We talk about protect, empower, and transforming society. Check it out today. It's online. Please find us. And we're inviting today entrepreneurs to talk about their solutions, show us how they work, how their business models work, respond startups which went through the Accelerator this year in 2020. And a very distinguished guest, I would like to welcome Amit Pradhan. He's a responsible leader of the BMW Foundation's network. He is a Respond mentor, so his family. Hi, Amit, it's great to have you here. I'd like to say some words and then we'll go over. Can you hear me?
I
Amit?
can, yeah.
Okay,
hello,
great.
Everyone. Thank you, Heba. Thank you.
Hi, Amit. So Amit is the founder and president of the Silicon Valley Blockchain Society. He is the chairman of Zero Labs, managing general partner at Jet Ventures. Since 2019, he's a board member at the Norwegian Refugee Council. He's an entrepreneur, an investor, and we're very glad to have you here with us today, Amit.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'll start with the first question. We'll have a conversation for the coming 10 minutes on tech for good and the role of technologies changing the world, in changing the world. What do you think is the role of technology to achieving the SDGs? And do we already have enough solutions to scale up globally and solve some of these very big challenges? How much needs to be done there?
Yeah, I mean, I would start out by saying, can you imagine if we actually talked about tech for bad? The concept would just sound so appalling, doesn't it? And yet, at the same time, it feels a little strange that there are entrepreneurs that are willing to use the power of exponential technology for things that don't truly matter, right? And I'm very excited for the entrepreneurs that we have in our universe who are using, tech to solve some of the bigger challenges. To your question, at the end of the day, the biggest challenges that our planet faces, whether it is at a planetary level, whether it is for our cities, whether it is for all different aspects that you can cover in the 17 SDGs, we're not going to solve them unless we leverage the power of exponential technology, right? We need the incredible ability of AI and machine learning to create the kind of predictive models that we would need to solve for some of the challenges around, agriculture and climate change, and learning about, how we can help folks with disabilities. And hopefully we're going to be able to hear more about that from one of the entrepreneurs. At the same time, we're going to have to think about economic models that change the foundation of the world that we live in and how we value human lives. You can see aspects of the blockchain and decentralization come into play there. And at the end of the day, a simple example, everything that we do today will have a root in data. and the entire IoT space coming out of there. And all of these, what otherwise sound like buzzwords are really important aspects of how we're going to be able to solve for these big challenges. And so to me, I think these are not two separate options. I think we're going to need entrepreneurs to solve for the biggest challenges, because in reality, from an investor's perspective, the deepest financial returns will come from those entrepreneurs who use exponential technology to solve for the biggest challenges that face the planet today.
So, talking about entrepreneurship, some of the solutions are there. There needs to be so much more empowerment for impact tech entrepreneurs tackling those issues. Coming from the investor's perspective, do you see the support needed for impact tech entrepreneurship for technologies that are developed for society and environment? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I would say that anything that is outside of that seems, such a waste of time. And I understand that, there is this propensity from an investor perspective to be very drawn to quick, shiny objects. Not because investors are foolish or investors are evil or any of those things. It's because there is a tie into the way funds are structured today. And you have to look at how quickly you can get liquidity from those investments, depending upon what the age of your fund is. And I think typically what happens is when you think about solutions that end up creating, solving for these bigger challenges, they tend to take a much longer time. They take longer time to build. They need more time to, let's just say, in traditional venture capital terms, achieve product market fit. And by the time those companies are attractive to a potential acquirer or can go public or can create other liquidity models, most investors, even if their hearts want them to go into a certain area, they can't achieve that. And that really then starts aligning with, well, then your construct of capital is not congruent with the future, because the future is a very demanding one right now. I think you could go back 10 years and, for a lot of people, the world of impact, for a lot of people, the work of the idea of social entrepreneurship was very, very fringe. It was more, kind of outside the norm than it was what most entrepreneurs built. And I think that is fundamentally changing right now. And if you're an investor who truly cares about what the next 10 years looks like, both for your future, the future of your kids, but more importantly, the future of your capital and the capital of your LPs, I think it is absolutely essential that VCs start looking at, not just VCs, but all form of capital, start looking at those kind of entrepreneurs and those kind of projects that are focused on creating a net positive impact, and I would say not on their target market, but on the humans they serve. And that really starts changing the way we all think about the long cycle, the entire chain of capital, entrepreneurs, solutions we create, and the kind of liquidity that can be created for solving the biggest problems.
I like that very much. It's a point which we need to really talk about. And citing your sentence from the report, some investors still live in traditional models of capital built around 5 to 7 years fund cycles, and that limits basically the sustainability of the startup ecosystem. Like we've seen a lot happening, and we need to learn from it and improve for longevity, right? So you've been there at the Respond Demo Night last month, and you've seen the startups. We'll hear some of them speaking today and about their solutions. What do we need to support the startup ecosystem? If you would choose one thing to start with, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's obviously more than one thing, but most of the time it's about capital that can roll up its sleeves and work with these startups on the entire journey, right? And if you think about that one thing that startups need is an ecosystem. If you look at the old success of Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley was not built just on you know, excellent climate and a great set of universities around there and the memories of Steve Jobs, right? It was built on the belief to back the audacity of founders to create things that if you go back 20, 30 years, we would not have even imagined, period. Forget imagined to be possible. And yet there was this ecosystem. Silicon Valley is not I always say Silicon Valley, when I refer to Silicon Valley, I don't refer to it as a place. I refer to it as a mindset, right? It is an ethos that believes in the audacity of founders, the audacity of hope, the audacity of achieving things that seem absolutely improbable in normal conversation, and it has no chance to succeed. And yet you not only create multi-billion-dollar opportunities, you solve for some of the biggest challenges. You change the way people have a relationship with their outside world. And we've seen that repeatedly. Well, that has changed. It's not about, can I get you a shinier phone? Can I get you a Snapchat filter system powered by AI that senses your mood and adjusts your photograph automatically, right? That audacity is not of doing those things. The audacity now is of solving, you know, our biggest planetary challenges, solving issues with the quality of our air, solving issues with, you know, helping people who are the most vulnerable in society. And the reality is that we need to provide that same ecosystem. Think of it as, you know, all of those aspects that Silicon Valley was able to provide, you know, high quality skill set, capital cross stages, the deep acceptance of failure, right? And the celebration of the effort that goes in, the ecosystems of companies that want to buy into these technologies, all of these things came together. And I think at the end of the day, if there's one thing we can do, it's to provide entrepreneurs with that ecosystem, that acceptance, that little envelope that says, you know what you're doing is amazing. We're here to support you. And we recognize that it's not just one thing.
Yeah, I would like to go deeper into the comparison also of the European and Silicon Valley ecosystem. Maybe you go to that later, so we can keep the time. I'll now invite our first startup, which is active in the area of protecting Earth. So most of the people would like to not add to harm or harm the planet. They want to protect the resources, they want to protect us, and this needs a lot of transparency and a lot of data and information. So we'll watch a short video about Hawa Dawa, a startup which is concerned about air quality and how to protect people and the planet. Let's go to the video.
Air pollution kills more people than tuberculosis, HIV, and malaria combined. It costs the EU alone 10% of its GDP and contributes to the climate crisis. As growing up in Cairo, I knew that air quality is more than just numbers and values. It requires proper data and data analytics, as well as linking this data to the industries in order to solve this problem incrementally and through transformative processes. And this is exactly what Hawa Dawa provides to respond to that problem. So we're turning the air around you into zeros and ones, to data. And we take this data through a computer to tell why am I monitoring what I'm monitoring. And then I can give you this data to tell you where the best location is to live, where to do sports, how to manage your health. So we are working on a global scale with big cities. So if you are interested in building up new standards on how to monitor and apply air quality data management in different industries, then approach us. And if you're an investor looking to create a global solution to one of the biggest global challenges, then also approach us. We will highly welcome to have you join our journey.
So Dawa is showing that it's possible to manage and reverse poor equality with AI. I'm very happy to have Cassi here, the COO of Dawa. Dawa is the digital startup of the year this year by the BMWE, the Federal Ministry of Economics and Energy. My first question would be, air quality is a matter of climate change, of health. It's concerning the economy. Tell us more about the technology and the partners you needed to be on board in order to achieve what you have achieved until now.
Yeah, hi Heba, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm queuing polar bears here, asthmatic school children, blighted farmers and so on. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think this question is critical to where Dawa is. Air pollution can no longer be treated as that sort of peripheral, largely invisible problem anymore, to be stored away with smog in the bottom drawer. And I think it's now, and quite rightly so, acknowledged to be part of a much broader global discourse that includes, climate, as you've said, public health, economic stress and disruption. And we believe at Dawa that, of course, in order to engage with that discourse and tackle some of these challenges at the most appropriate and the most, let's say, effectual level of decision making, requires data, as Karim just said. So granular, comprehensive, universal, ground to space, whatever you want to call it, accessible, interoperable, contextualized data, and that's where Dawa steps in. So we're effectively building a platform which fuses all of these available air quality data sets, whether open source, external IoT, satellite imagery, public data from official measurement stations, with our own collected granular IoT sensor data. And we basically process the output from this entire technology stack, sort of ground to space, into a calibrated digital data set that basically, with the help of AI, offers real life street level air quality measurements, as well as model-based insight where it makes most sense. And talking about the business model behind what we're doing here lies in basically the model that once this data is existing and collected and actually exists in this platform, it can be accessed and literally subscribed to via our platform over and over and over again, to service a diverse range or universal range of different use cases, be it in healthcare, reinsurance, shipping and logistics, risk reporting, compliance, and so on. And basically how we realize this approach is, you mentioned, you asked about partnerships, is a two-pronged approach to partnerships, or to the partnership model. So on the one side, working with infrastructure partners to collect or connect all of the physical possible data collection points, be it across advertising infrastructure, telco, vehicles, etc. And then on the other side, to actually engage with some of those strategic partners or companies or organizations and end users, the end users of that data, to actually find value in and apply our comprehensive insights to develop these new use cases, to develop new third-party applications using our data, or to develop new products and services in the smart city space. So this actually means that our partners can be as diverse, for example, as green champions at the top of global corporations. They can be international development organizations and initiatives, and they can be those engaged at the helm of industry transformation groups and those ecosystems that Amit talked about earlier. So, for example, initiatives such as Breeze London in the UK, Climate Trace, OpenAQ, each of these organizations is driving a reinvigorated approach or collaborative approach to bringing transparency to air quality, and we're part of that. And what we find is that they're tending to sort of override some of those traditional sector boundaries, let's say, and they mean that companies such as ourselves, Dawa, is actually now able to sort of service new industry permutations. So, we're now talking about spatial finance, we're now talking about digital health, we're talking about, sustainable development goals-led growth, and with the help of that, we can do something with our global data sets.
Amit, I'll hand over to you with the next question to Cassi.
Yeah, thank you, Heba. That's Cassi, very, very impressive. I'll go back to that Silicon Valley, context, because you're such a great example of what I was trying to describe as the future of what startups should look like, right? On one hand, it is an IoT and AI play, buzzwords that, obviously industry and investors love. But at the end of the day, I can see you as a foundation of how future businesses will look at decision making, look at data points before they do anything. Explain to us really quickly how, in Silicon Valley terms, so I want you to think big. I want you to think, billion-dollar opportunity, that Hawa Dawa has the ability to be that foundational API for every decision tree that businesses across the board, across industries, governments, other verticals would build all their decision making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Amit. I think, whilst underlining our mission, many of the values that sort of help us define and perhaps shape data transparency can sometimes snag a little when it comes to sort of fitting maybe predefined models of what growth means, and maybe that's a Silicon Valley model. And for example, it's not always very simple to actually quantify and qualify our market potential according to some of those sort of metrics that are used by investors and perhaps by Silicon Valley as well, that model. Since basically the output from our data insights and some of our modelling work can actually bring massive but cross-sectoral benefits. So it's sort of where to start, when understanding what that business model potential is. And I think in order to draw such investments, this is exactly where we need to go. This is what standard investors and VCs, require us and are looking for us to do. They want to guarantee that markets will eventually shift to, for example, commoditized zero emissions and clean air. They want a strong indication that global cities will eventually be compelled to collect and publish hyperlocal quality data, as a matter of course, and then use it in these decision-making processes that you and I think in response, we have had to become much better at qualifying what our added value is compared to, for example, our competitors. And there are many of these edging into this space. So I think what helps in answering your question perhaps is to illustrate what I'm trying to say with some of the work that we've already done in this space to actually sort of help monitor and then mitigate for this pollution. And I think some of these examples will go some way to sort of chipping away at that skepticism perhaps and match the maturity phase of the market and where we are right now. So just talking briefly, we've developed and piloted an eco-sensitive traffic routing system based on our pollution forecaster with one of Europe's largest industrial manufacturing companies. We're applying our expertise and modelling work to underpin an app that helps sufferers of respiratory and other chronic diseases to actually monitor their exposure risk. We've developed the world's first air quality impact bond with one of the largest global reinsurers, and with one of the biggest logistics carriers globally. We formed a consortium which is looking at how we explore the use of satellite data in air quality monitoring. We're talking with the European Space Agency and other international space agencies to talk about potential projects in the space of industrial monitoring. And then, to top that off, we're talking with the United Nations on the development of a tool that actually helps in facilitating SDG reporting. So I think this isn't, a trivial topic. I think each one of those examples that I might have just given demonstrates that there's a very big awareness, there's a very big appetite for engaging with the air quality topic, and all this as part of a much broader net zero or carbon neutral agenda. And basically where we sit in all of this is that underpinning all of these cases and partnerships and ecosystems, as you've mentioned, is the fact that we can right now service some of these industrial use cases. So today we can do some of this work. And our ambition is to actually develop a single universal comprehensive system which interlinks or is interlinked with artificial intelligence, to use a buzzword there, but to actually build our models, forecasts, and be able to understand that life pollution level, and most critically be able to provide context from which to take these informed industry and potentially society changing decisions that are linked to our health, to our climate, to the economy. So maybe to sort of turn that question on its head, the VC instrument, I think, is just one instrument, and I think we need to look at a much broader range of different partners and financing to do what we're trying to do. Thanks.
We're covering very interesting and broad topics about AI for good and the support and the Silicon Valley language. Amit, we need to speak about that. I think at the end, we'll talk about the difference between the Silicon Valley scalability and ecosystem and the European one. Now we need to go to the next startup, which is tackling a topic which is related to empowering people and enabling them to be included in society, and which doesn't cost so much money and is much more practical than many other solutions. So let's go to the video of Amparo and come back.
Yeah, 9 in every 10 people in the world, they don't have access to modern prostheses. And our challenge was to come up with a solution for amputees from developing countries. We realized that there's not enough technicians, not enough professionals, not enough products, and not enough clinics worldwide to be able to provide prosthetics to these amputees. So we responded by creating a solution that would actually increase access to amputees worldwide. Our product is made of a low temperature thermoplastic, and with it, we can fit a person with a prosthesis in 1 hour time. So now we can even go to rural areas from developing countries or from any country and provide prosthetics to people who never had the chance before.
I'm very glad to welcome Lucas, CEO of Amparo. Lucas, can you tell us more about the technology that makes it affordable and possible to have such a complicated engineering prosthesis on a high quality and accessible for everyone? What's your technology and what's your USP?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And what we did is pretty much, it's a very simple solution. So we understood that in order to provide more access, we had to go low tech and not high tech, because in developing countries, also the education level and skill level, it would be extremely challenging for you to have 3D printers and then people who had to maintenance the 3D printer and operate it. So we went to a very low technology solution, pretty much a mechanical solution. So we manufacture our products in-house, and it's a cone shaped based on low temperature thermoplastic. And then we also develop all the tools to do it. So we have a mobile oven, we also have a mobile pump, and then we bring this all into place. And when we heat the socket, in 10 minutes, we can already fit to the person. And with the vacuum, we get the exact shape and format from that person's residual limb. And in about 1 hour time, the socket is ready. The person can be walking because all the tools, they fit into the sports bag. That's why we say that we have a mobile workshop, because now people can just take that sports bag and go to any place in the world in order to provide someone the prosthesis. And when we say we empower someone, it's because, well, people with disabilities, they're usually invisible in society. People don't notice them, people don't talk to them, or people don't want to notice them because they show our imperfections, they show our limitations. And there's a lot of society that don't want to look at that. But as a matter of fact, the more that we look at that, the more that we can notice their strengths, because they overcome challenges that we have no idea of. And actually, we should look at them as superheroes. Like in the Paralympics, this is very often happens. Like everyone is so surprised by the wonders these people and these athletes can do. And this is not limited only to the athletes themselves, but each person has their own potential. And what you want to bring with this solution is actually to bring the best potential for everyone so they can live life to the full.
So every time Lucas was telling the story about Amparo and how he is changing people's lives, I always have almost tears in my eyes. Amit, what's your question from the investors' side?
So it's thank you, Lucas. Always, I'm with Heba. You know, it's very inspiring to listen to you, and the challenge always, you know, especially from an investor perspective, once we take off the rose-tinted glasses of the story, and you're a very impressive founder and storyteller, you know, how does this transition from being a little impact project that helps, you know, X number of amputees, how do you convey the message to investors that you have a vision and a business plan for this to be a legitimate, you know, 9-figure startup potential because of where you can take this? And from an investor's perspective, that becomes a really important way to look at this opportunity, rather than put you in a little, you know, wonderful, beautiful, but, you know, little box in the corner.
Every time someone asks me, what do you want to do? So what do you want? What is your vision? What is your goal? And I always have the same answer. So I say to everyone that I want to become a millionaire, pretty much, in the sense that I want to make 1 million people walk, at least. And that is my concept of numbers and of achievement that we want to do. So in the world, there's about 65 million people in need of prosthesis. 60% of those, around 40 million, are lower limb related. And from this number, more than half have no access to prosthesis, to modern prosthesis at all. The numbers exist, and they do say that there's a recent study that says that by 2050, although more technologies toward healthcare are being developed, by 2050, this number is pretty much going to double. Mostly because, well, in developed countries, diabetes and cardiovascular diseases are the main cause of amputation, while in low and mid-income countries, it's more traffic accidents or accidents of violence, acts of violence, war, so related. But so this number of more than 22 million people in need of technology, and every year there's an extra 500,000 people that need these kind of technologies and have no access. In total is 1.5 million people get amputated every year, but 500,000 have no access. And what we're doing with our technology, by creating a mobile solution, we're creating a market. We're unleashing a market. The idea is that because these people right now, they do not have, not even the access. A lot of those people, they would have actually the resources to acquire maybe a basic prosthesis, but they don't have access. There's a country like in Uganda, there's one clinic for the whole country. How can you ever service that? And people sometimes, they would not have the resources to come and go and often, because having a prosthesis is the same thing as having a car. You have to repair it. You have to change it. So it's not like you buy one and it's done for life. So it's an ongoing process that you have to maintain, that you have to actually maybe replace some of the parts. So the thing is, what we're trying to do is to unleash a solution that goes worldwide. Our solution is very well used. It could be very well used for recent amputees, especially in developed countries. And in developing countries, we want to pretty much unleash the market that exists, but is not being explored. So when I say I want to be a millionaire, it's true. We're a very driven, mission-driven company. We want to make 1 million people walk for sure. But our business model has proven that we actually can transform this into resources, into revenue. So this is not just talking about dreams that could fade away. We actually want to achieve our dreams in a sustainable way, in a healthy way. Because one of the things that we understood from the very beginning is that we want to help people, but we have to help ourselves before we have somebody else. It means that we need to be sustainable, and we need to be able to stand our own in order to achieve our mission for the whole world.
So Lucas, you're talking about sustainability in your business model, sustainability in profit, but also the sustainability in terms of the solution and how many people it could reach and to afford sustainable life, basically. I think this is a very good overview about the balance of impact and profit, which we need, like the millionaire of solution and impact and the millionaire of the sustainable budget and returns. Thank you so much, Lucas. I'm so blinded by the time, so we're going now to the transforming part. Transforming society needs a lot of effort, a lot of very creative, disruptive solutions. Our next startup is transforming systems by a newly developed material we'll hear about to change manufacturing, construction, materials through material science. So it's a very exciting solution. Let's go to the video and come back.
We have this huge existential problem with climate change. And the actual fact is that we've got too much CO2 in the atmosphere. And that means we actually have too much carbon in the atmosphere. And if you think about it, it means that climate change is a material problem. And I set up, along with my co-founder, Medever, to respond to that problem, to create a new material resource that we can use for manufacturing. We take wood waste from the wood industry, which has already stored CO2 in the material, and we convert it into biochar. And in this step, we lock the carbon into a material. We refine that biochar in a series of steps, and we get a thermoplastic compound that behaves like any other plastic. We're actively looking for partners. We need pioneers. We need people to join the momentum of this. And I think manufacturing is going to change in a big way. And we are creating the materials to make the change happen.
I'm very glad to welcome Allison, CEO of Made of Air. Made of Air has been the science startup breakthrough of the year of the falling walls in the World Science Summit this year. It's just fresh from this Monday. And it got the Golden Pretzel Award this year at the Bits and Pretzels. Allison, it's so great to have you here. It's always a pleasure to see you. We'll have to be very brief, but we'd like to understand the disruption dimension in the material you developed and the positive impacts you are ambitious to create.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Heba. It's really nice to be involved in this event. Yeah, I'd like to introduce to you Medever, and I think in the video you heard we look front and center at materials. We see materials as a make or break moment for our carbon budget. We look at manufacturing, which involves lots of industries like furniture, like the built environment, automotive, all manufactured goods. And we see a reliance in manufacturing on fossil resources and not a lot of options for durable applications. So not disposable applications, but durables, products that are going to be with you for 10 to 30 years. There aren't a lot of sustainable materials that you can make those products from. So at Medever, we believe that we should not be just making a new green resource for these products. We can do better than that. We don't necessarily set out to have a carbon neutral future. It's too late for that. To serve the climate, what we believe is that materials should be carbon storing. And so we've developed a carbon negative material. And what that means, that's a new term. I kind of think of it as like the new biodegradable, but it's going to do a big thing in manufacturing. And what it does is it takes more CO2 out of the air, stores it in the material, and it emits less than it stores. So you get a net balance, which is carbon negative. And that means that all the products that you would make from this raw material become carbon sinks. And we hear a lot about forests, trees being carbon sinks, but the reality is that those carbon sinks are only there as long as the trees are alive. And in our material, we have permanent storage of that carbon. So we're taking it out of the air through biomass, and we're putting it in a material. And that material's destiny is really to go in the ground. So we talk a lot about circularity, and that's great, and recycling, but we like to address the very end of use. Like what is the long game for these materials? Can we get all that carbon in the air back in the ground just by the scale of our manufacturing activity?
And this is a great transformation. Amit, can you tell us maybe how easy or difficult you think this is?
No, I actually am very impressed. I don't think it is particularly difficult. I think the zeitgeist is in your favor right now. You don't have to sell the idea of carbon negative. You know, I think the industry at large understands that. I would actually want to know, Allison, if you thought about how you can create a sustainable supply chain when you're the biggest thing when it comes to supplying you know, whether it is automotive manufacturers on one end or, you know, the future of furniture manufacture or, you know, other industries, how do you think about sustainable, not dependent on just one ecosystem supply chains?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the first thing I would say is that, you know, when you talk about the ocean and the plastic problem in the ocean, and I think I've heard it said from companies working on that problem, you don't want to be the only company taking plastic out of the ocean. Nobody wants that. We don't want to be the only company taking carbon out of the air. And so I think I would start by saying that our supply chain, our kind of future of this endeavor, is to join up. We need partnerships. We need other companies doing, getting involved, adopting this idea of carbon negative. We need more negative emissions technologies to participate in an economy, because really it's too late for behavior change. What we need is systemic adoption. And so I think, I mean, it's an interesting question also because we're a hardware startup. And I think that's, you know, that's problematic across the board. But at the same time, it's great because we can control a supply chain where we can get buy-in all the way from a consumer right down to the manufacturing on the ground level. And so when we talk about transformative change, what we actually focus on is industrial change. And I think there are kind of two ways to approach that. One is we have to get consumers to understand the origins of the materials that their products are made of. And we have to get them to care. So we have to make meaningful change happen in the material that they're holding, which means we've got to start talking about where our material, where our resources are coming from. We've got to start sitting on the brand side and getting that message across in our products. We've got to start being an ethical partner in explaining to consumers where that material is going to go. And I really believe that when you reach people and you can form a place in their mind and make meaningful messaging, I do think that that's really the only way that change starts to happen. On the other side, on the production side, and I think it's more to your point, when we scale it up, it's a huge supply chain. How do we get buy-in from the industry, which is stuck on fossil resources? And I think the only way we can do it there is by making economic winners. And by that, we have an interesting business model for that. We make materials, and for every ton we make, 2 tons of CO2 comes out of the air. So the more money we make with that, the better for the environment. And I think that's where we can see the messaging can play up on one side with the end user. But I think when you're talking about industrial alignment, we have to be very careful. They're not, you know, not everyone's going to buy into saving the climate, but you have to make an economic winner out of them and convince them that way. So I think we're seeing scale happen from both sides.
Thank you, Allison. This is really an inspiring perspective on how to balance the profit and impact side, and how to make transformation, systemic transformation actually is needed in order to change the industrial mindset, the society, etc. But it's all very logical, like Amit said, like it goes hand in hand, and there's a momentum now. Everyone sees how urgent it is and how important it is, and it has so much potential. Thank you so much. Amit, I'll take 2 minutes to ask you about the main difference between the Silicon Valley ecosystem and Europe. Do you see a lot of potential in the competitiveness from the European startups, which we heard today, and from your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say right off the bat, first of all, listening to all 3 startups today, you know, if you hadn't started out by saying this is an impact-focused event, you would have bought the idea that this was a Silicon Valley pitch competition, right? Because these startups are, in my mind, very mainstream in the way that they think about the opportunity they represent. I thought that these were very credible business models, very credible answers to some of the questions. You know, I would say this, again, going back to the fact that Silicon Valley should be thought of as a state of mind. And Europe has a really big opportunity right now. And I'm seeing that spending more time in Europe constantly. You know, the zeitgeist has shifted. Responsibility and response to the biggest challenges are not an outlier conversation anymore. And you know, I love this quote by Buckminster Fuller, who says, we are called upon to be the architects of the future, not its victims. And I love that we're sitting here amongst architects of the future. And I believe that Europe has a unique opportunity of taking this position where the moral compass is a compass that is focused on solving for the bigger challenges. And yes, not doing it in a way that is driven by just, really great initiatives, but not substance behind it. It is about using the latest in exponential technology. It is about access to good long-term capital and investors who can see the opportunity in solving these bigger challenges. And I think it's about creating the envelope, like I was saying earlier, that gives incredible founders like this the opportunity to take these big, audacious projects and deliver upon them the kind of value, to the point Lucas made, to be a millionaire, not just in terms of financial terms, but Mission 2030, how do we create a positive impact on the lives of 1 billion people around the world? And to me, this is Europe's biggest opportunity, because you can do it in a way that learns from the state of mind that is Silicon Valley, and yet focuses on where we are today, on being the architects of the future. So congratulations to everyone. It's been a real pleasure to be able to listen and see, what you're developing. And Heba, again, wonderful job with Respond to be able to help create and nurture that envelope, that container that I was mentioning, which allows you to be able to foster startups that are solving for the bigger challenges.
Thank you so much, Amit. I really would like to highlight the point which is so important for us in Respond. Respond is an accelerator by the BMW Foundation and operated by Unternehmertum. And the main focus we have in the core is responsible leadership, because as Amit mentioned, it's so important to have the sense of responsibility and the intention to bring impact and topics which are very concerning for society forward, and to save the planet, etc. So it's not like the buzzwords, it's really about the content and how to achieve it with responsible entrepreneurship, responsible investment on all levels. I would like to go to questions from the audience if there are any, and also highlight that today is the day of launching the BMW Foundation report on Tech for Good, on technologies changing the world. Please check it out. It is brought to you by the BMW Foundation, supported by Respond, and in partnership with Sifted, which is backed up by the Financial Times, a media site. Please check it out. It's very interesting to read. Any questions from the audience which we can take here?
Yes, actually there is one quite interesting question. So what are the biggest challenges for an impact startup today?
I would say it's good for a startup to answer, so please feel free to jump in and answer. Lucas, Cassi, Allison. Lucas.
Maybe I'll jump in very briefly then. I'll try and keep it a bit shorter. So, sorry.
No, Cassi,
Lucas,
go
after
ahead.
you. Okay, I would say maybe and it's probably the case for Lucas and Allison as well, is that for us, certainly the market isn't quite mature enough yet. So there's a lot of skepticism, there's a lot of sort of questioning and challenging about what we're doing, and whether it's robust enough and whether we can do it ourselves. And I think that's something that we really need to sort of target. And it's not often that you get the sort of aha, moment. I get that now. We get that who your end user is, and that there is a market there. And I think that is certainly one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you. Any comments? Lucas, now. We can't hear you, Lucas. You are on mute. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you. No, I think for every entrepreneur, access to capital is always a challenge. What I notice sometimes that from impact-driven startups, like the ecosystem of the VC world, of the capital is in such a way that they're very skeptical about what we're doing. because money is not our drive. We are driven by impact, and money is kind of like of course, we're also like looking for money. We need to survive, but that's not why we take the entrepreneurship into these ideas. And then there's a lot of like skepticism, like, hey, are these guys doing something real? Like, can they really make money with it? So I think there's an even bigger due diligence, or a big, even like a more risk averse than towards other companies that are doing a new filter for Snapchat or whatever, just because there's a common sense that that's somehow works in the world. And we are usually disrupting markets the way that we do things. So I think there's a more risk averse coming from investors in our sector than in other people. At the same time, I do see that in the last 3-4 years, there's a lot more impact driven investors and investment opportunities in the world than it was before. So I think the world is opening their eyes for it, and and it's great that they are open to these opportunities, and they look more in depth into companies like ours.
So it's very important to showcase, like we're doing today, like we're trying to do, to show the examples so that everyone starts believing even more and more, and stop having a difference between mainstream and impact investors, etc. Just having one community supporting what makes sense, and putting the efforts in that. Allison?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think that both what Cassie's saying and Lucas, that goes straight to my heart. Same. I think I would add to that being non-institutional. I think this is a big thing. So the startup culture can be quite top down. There's a way to do things, even though it's meant to be a kind of reinvention and innovation-based business model. A lot of times you get a lot of conformity in the way that you behave, and the way that you fundraise, and the way that you talk about what you do, and a kind of demand that you get supported by particular institutions, and that you come from there, that you have a PhD in this thing or that thing, and that pre-qualifies you to solve the problem. And I think it's particularly painful when you're an impact startup, because we are dealing with a problem in terms of climate change, and also in general sustainability. That's a diverse problem. There are so many angles that we have to tackle in there. There's so many kinds of ways of thinking that are needed to do that. And I can see already, I know Cassie's team and Lucas's team, the team is diverse. And I don't mean like it looks diverse, I mean the thinking is diverse. And I think it's because you have to understand that from the beginning. You can't come from the same pool and tackle this kind of problem.
Thank you, Allison. I think, Amit, if you can summarize today, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with all of you. Amit, maybe your comments. What do impact tech entrepreneurs need? What does it need to make technology for good common sense and have no barriers?
Yeah, thank you again for having me. And I would say, collectively to all three of you, in the context of your answers, Cassi, the fact that investors want to ask you those questions, that already recognizes what you're doing is relevant. And I would take that as a positive. I think, if you stepped into the world of non-impact startups, and to be honest, I'll tie that into Allison, what you said, I don't think you're an impact startup. I think that's a terminology that's putting you into a little bucket. You are a big challenge, big opportunity, current zeitgeist project, right? And that's who you are. This is now, this is not just about the future. 10 years ago, it would have been harder to sell this. You represent a huge opportunity. And I think going after impact investors is fundamentally the wrong idea, right? Because at the core, if I had to summarize how we should all look at this, the gap between what is impact capital and mainstream capital, right? Last year, that difference was close to a 1000x in difference in actual capital deployed. is not just a financial gap, it is a mindset gap, which is why, to me, it's always going to be, your conversation is about creating, the billion-dollar opportunities around some of these most compelling challenges that face the planet today, and how you're solving it in an innovative way using the latest and available technology so you can achieve scale. And the combination of that gap of your mindset as a non-little impact play, you're not in that little box, you're solving a huge mainstream problem. The use of mainstream technology, and I think from a financial perspective, the modeling of huge mainstream returns is what I see you all playing in. And so for me, Heba, I think what Respond is doing is, Respond is not creating the next generation of impact startups. Respond is responding to the biggest challenges of the planet today. And in doing so, creating the next genre of the greatest financial return opportunities that investors are going to see. And to me, that's what makes this conversation and this space so exciting going forward.
Thank you for the inspiring words. Thank you for your support. It's really about responding, like you're saying, how we respond makes a difference. This is our motto. Thank you so much, Allison, Lucas, Cassi, for being with us. Again, thank you, Amit. Thank you for the viewers. And yeah, see you again soon, and stay in touch with us.
Yeah, thank you, Heba, and the whole Respond team for this inspiring panel. And now you can get to know 4 more startups of the Respond Accelerator. Here are Ben from GmbH, Lubomila from Plan A, Maureen from Meersense, and Christoph and Todor from GmbH. Roll the film.
We have a huge plastic pollution problem in our oceans. Exactly 9 million tons, or now we estimate 12 million tons of plastic are flown into our oceans every year. And this is a huge problem for our marine life as well as for us humans, because we all depend on our ocean. We need to do something about it. We need to stop plastic flowing into the ocean, and we need to bring plastic out of the ocean and recycle it ashore. And our response was to set up GmbH, to create a structure and to create a company where people can come together in a greater movement. And we have established a network of fishermen, 1,500 to be exact, in Java, in the Demak region, that's Indonesia. And these fishermen go out fishing and bring plastic in their nets and bring it ashore, where we can use it for the production of our backpacks. If you want to contribute to saving our oceans, check our website, gut-bed.com. Let's create an impact.
Company sustainability at the moment is really complicated. If you want to become sustainable, you need to take a lot of different actions that quite often are not something that companies are familiar with. Plan A has developed a software that helps companies calculate, monitor, and reduce their emissions. We enable, through science and machine learning, companies to essentially map out their emissions, where they're coming from, and learn how to act on them and how to reduce them. Every single act that we do on this planet has an effect on the external environment, and we today have the responsibility to take this into consideration and start learning to consume more responsibly and be more aligned to what our planet also needs, which is a lot more care so that she can reestablish its health.
One of the major issues right now is the environment impacting people's life and health. 85% of chronic disease are mostly linked to your environment, which is mostly the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat. The main role of Meersense is really to improve people's life thanks to data related to the environment and data related to people. So we are collecting two types of data. We collect objective data, which is mostly coming from open data and IoT. Then it's processed inside our system. And then we have another data, which is very interesting, is what we call the subjective data. And by doing that and by confronting the subjective with the objective data, it helps everybody to move in the right direction and generate a virtuous circle between companies and employees, between citizens and cities, or patients and hospitals, and move from greenwashing to acting and respond to those challenges that we are facing today. I have no doubt that now everybody is aware of it, and that all together we can make the world a healthier place.
Climate change and plastic pollution are global challenges. Every year, our planet's getting warmer and over 10 million tons of plastic end up in the ocean. To solve these problems, everybody needs to become active. GoodBag is the first smart, reusable shopping bag that enables our users to plant trees against climate change, clean plastic waste out of the ocean, or save money by receiving discounts. And on top of that, every user can track their impact in the GoodBag app. We want to connect to new business partners, new investors, and everybody out there so we can improve the world together.
I think it's incredible how many energy is wasted worldwide. So if you take a look, for example, to steel factories, there's a flare gas stack burning, and it's just 100% energy into the air. I think we have to respond to this energy waste, to stop it, to recycle this energy, to make it utilized again. At Kraftwerk, we are doing that by establishing high performance heat storage systems in order to recover the heat very, very fast and utilize it whenever it's needed again. It's just a so-called sensible storage, so it's a stone-like material we developed by our own, which consists of 85% of recycled materials, and this just takes the energy out of each waste gas or flue gas stream and stores it until it's released again by, let's say, cold air, where we drive the energy out again. If you want to be a part of the energy transition, if you want to have the world to get a bit better, just partner up with us, get in cooperations with us, integrate our systems to your company, to your facility, to respond to this energy waste, to stop it, to recycle this energy, to make it utilized again.
Wir bauen dann kurz oder?
Between 2.1 and 2.3 billion people do not have access to clean drinking water on this planet. 80% of these people live in remote areas. Every 2 minutes, a child dies because does not have access to clean drinking water. We founded Bossack to be a part of the solution of providing drinking water to the people around the world. We provide drinking water by purifying water that we find on site up to drinking water standards. And we do that with 100% renewable energy. So that means we don't have an environmental footprint on the ground, and we also have a huge social impact because bringing drinking water to society, to a community, is really helping them in their development of the community.
In Lagos, there are at least 5 million people who needs a roof over their heads and they can't afford it. Liquefy recycles plastic waste into water, fire, heat, and wind-resistant paving bricks and blocks used to construct roads and low-cost houses. It is made up of 50 to 60% of plastic waste. If you're an individual that is interested in helping homeless people, you could contact us from wherever, and we will deliver the houses there. So Liquefy is open to partnership with corporate organizations, with international civil organizations, as well as religious bodies whose goal or focus is on tackling homelessness and housing deficit. Thank you so much.